Are you planning a solo trip through Europe in the winter? The thought alone can be daunting, especially if you're doing it for the first time. Squeezing warm clothes into one bag, trying not to drop your phone or wallet in crowded Christmas markets, and trying to fit in as much as you can in every single short day because the sun sets early. Those alone can weigh on you. I made 15 stops in 8 countries in 7 weeks, and it was planned around a big birthday trip back to Germany, where I was born, in honor of my late parents. I was also on a quest to find some birth records, but I failed. In this video, I'm going to share some highlights of the trip and 3 ways in which I managed to travel solo through all those places without feeling entirely alone and without being entirely alone. This video is based on my blog article, which contains more details and stories, and it's linked in the description below. If you're new here, please hit the subscribe button and check out the description below for more links and resources. This trip took place before the pandemic. Actually, I was there right up until January 2020, and none of us had any clue something was going on. Thankfully, life and travel was completely normal. Current travel restrictions set aside, you will get an inside look at European winter travel. Maybe a little nostalgic for some people, but maybe it will give us some hope for a return to how travel and life once was. I had several friends to meet up with in Europe, and I had some family, but there were parts of this trip that I had to travel alone, commuting from city to city for the most part, and within certain locations. Traveling alone, period, comes with moments of loneliness and often uncertainties. It's also cold and dark, which can kick you down if you're already having depressive moments. So I suggest reaching out to locals in your city stops in the destination countries before you even leave home. I used a few solo female travel Facebook groups, but use your best judgment and always try to meet people in a public place. Even better if you can connect with them beforehand live on the phone. Now you've attached a voice to a name, to a picture or online profile. But as a result, I formed very good friendships with some really amazing people in different countries, and that just made the whole trip so much easier. I spent some time in London with my uncle and aunt first. Then I met up with Carla from a Facebook group. She was also doing a European tour for her 50th birthday and happened to have a similar itinerary. We traveled together from London to Amsterdam, then we parted ways, and then we met up again in Prague. From Amsterdam, I headed to my birthplace, Hamburg, for only 2 nights. And way before my actual birthday, I was there on a Friday, and the government offices closed early, especially during the holidays. So no luck on finding those birth records when I was in Europe. In a fun time, though, I met 3 new friends, 2 wonderful ladies from the Facebook group, and Carmen, who I met on the train coming in from Amsterdam. I had the best coffee in Germany. I was invited to my first Christmas market in Europe, and I toured the Elbphilharmonie and walked around the city in the frigid cold. And thanks to Carmen, I went down to the St. Pauli red light district for the famous Santa Pauli Christmas market. You just can't see everything in Berlin in 3 nights. But I did cover a few landmarks, and I failed to realize the museums are typically dark on Mondays, which is one of the days I was there. But you know, I was content with myself because I went at my own pace, and I just went with the flow and really met some wonderful people. Often solo travelers do multi-country tours, and they try to cram so much in every stop. And to me, that could be exhausting because not only am I feeling frustrated behind the 8 ball if I do that, but I also feel that I would raise the risk of getting sick just from the stress of running. Next to Hamburg, Prague was one of the coldest cities on this trip. It was fascinating, though. The architecture, the food, the people were interesting. There were quite a few tourists. It's very, very touristy. I was really glad I booked a really neat Airbnb walking distance from the train station in a very decent neighborhood. I then headed back to Germany for my birthday in Munich, this time for 6 nights during the Christmas week. I visited a colleague and friend there, Dr. Matt, a chiropractor and American expat who showed me around the city, but I wanted to see snow and nothing was falling in Munich. So on the 24th of December, we boarded a train to Innsbruck, Austria. In Europe, it is so easy to buy train tickets online, last minute or at the train station. Innsbruck was breathtaking. It was like a picture postcard winter wonderland, and I absolutely loved it. There were so many tourists, so if you're going there for the Christmas break, book dinner reservations in advance, or as soon as you know you're going to Innsbruck. Christmas Day was spent on a hop-on, hop-off bus, catching in the views of Innsbruck. It was still very cold, so I wandered into a local pub, and it was just so nice to just relax and have a nice little birthday lunch. Okay, tip number 2. Cafes and neighborhood pubs are golden in Europe. Especially when you're traveling alone, this is where you want to stop in for a coffee, a bite to eat. Even if you don't drink coffee, have some tea, grab some lunch. You're going to find other solo travelers. You're going to find very friendly locals because in most places you may be visiting, there are a lot of tourists and they love meeting people from outside their area. So after Munich, I was on my way to Milan. It was a long train ride, but I'd been in Milan before, but in the summer, and this was my first winter. Did I escape the cold? No, not at all. It was freezing, but the people, the energy, the fashion, the food, and my friends there made up for it. I was taken to so many places, including the Opera House, of course the Duomo, and 2 trips to Lake Como, one for the New Year's Eve party, Italian style, and a second time to visit Via Balbianello. I visited my friends Doug and Claudia. Doug is another expat chiropractor in Lisbon and has since opened his second practice in Setúbal. My first time in Lisbon was in the summer of 2016, and despite the cold and dampness this time, Portugal felt more like home to me. While I was in Lisbon, I booked a last-minute round trip by train to Sevilla. I had to route through Faro, and Faro is down in the Algarves, and it's a cute little port town, and that's where I transferred from the train to take a bus to Sevilla and back to Faro. In Sevilla, I had a friend there as well. I met up with a flamenco dancer, a professional dancer. Her name is Miriam, and she introduced me to a few friends who became local tour guides. Miriam also invited me to Flamenco Peña, which is a local peña, a neighborhood gathering in that part of Spain. And that's where all the musicians and dancers get together. They either practice, perform for each other, or perform for the local community. And I absolutely loved it. It was so nice, standing room only, and they do everything late in Spain. So that was a very long night, but it was so worth it. Actually, in Sevilla, I also had my first private flamenco lesson with Miriam, and that was an experience in itself. If you ever get a chance to do that, definitely take a flamenco class. So after a few more days in Lisbon, when I returned, I had to say goodbye to my friends and head back to London because this is where I was heading home. But I had more things to do in London, and I had only 3 days. I did arrive with a bad headache. That was the first time I felt sick from my entire 7 weeks of travel. So I did pretty good, but I think the stress from the flight, packing bags, trying to make sure I didn't have overweight luggage, everything involved with solo travel through train and bus and plane, you name it, it culminated in a bad headache. I concluded this epic journey with a visit to the London Centre of Indian Champasage in King's Cross, where I received my first champasage experience. That is a traditional Indian head massage, and it was amazing. I actually did a separate video on that. When traveling alone, always know you are not alone in solo travel. Number 3, join local events. Join events, short tours, those free walking tours. Tap into your hobbies, your interests, maybe your education or the field of work you're in, and connect with people online at least, or through colleagues at work, and find out where you can attend a conference, a festival, any type of performance or event where you're meeting like-minded people. This will make you feel at home. This will actually broaden your connections, whether it's for a career expansion or a new direction in life. The world is actually a small place, and today's technology and social platforms give us little to no excuse not to connect, share, and learn from each other during our travels. So I ended up turning my big 5-0 in Austria and not in my birth country, which was a little ironic because the whole point of my trip was to go back to my birth country and ring in my birthday. But that wasn't a problem because I absolutely loved having that winter experience in Innsbruck. It's pretty much like a German experience. A lot of people speak German there, and I absolutely loved it. So if you've traveled alone before, please leave some tips in the comments if you have any. For those of us or other people watching this who may be on the fence and not sure if they're ready to take the first step in going solo. Please subscribe to this channel if you want to see more content. I plan to upload more videos on specific stops of this trip and other travels I've done, as well as some useful content to keep you healthy while you venture out. My quest for birth records failed while I was there in Europe, but Carmen, my friend, came through 6 months later and she did some investigating. I was so grateful to her because she was able to find some pieces of information that were missing from my past. Thank you so much for watching. I hope these tips gave you some inspiration or at least some help in planning your next solo travel. This is Dr. Melanie. I wish you happy, healthy, and safe travels wherever life takes you.